1 in 8 of the world's population are now classed as obese.
Toxic, ultra-processed food. Obesity rates for kids have tripled.
The double chunk chocolate cookie.
Introducing new Fruitomic.
Did you know food companies hire neuroscientists to study how to trigger your brain's reward system? Did you know some snacks are engineered to melt instantly so your brain forgets you even ate anything? Did you know your cravings are often manufactured in a lab long before you ever taste the food? The average person now consumes over 600 pounds of ultra-processed food every year, and most of them don't even know why they can't stop. Let me show you how the food industry hacks your brain. Welcome back to the channel where we question the systems we were taught to trust. Here we uncover the subtle ways industries shape our minds, our identities, and even our desires, often without us ever realizing it. Today we're discussing how the food industry doesn't just feed us, but programs us. So let's break this down. Eating is supposed to be a natural response to hunger, yet many of us crave food even when our stomachs are full. Why? Because modern food isn't designed to just nourish you, it's designed to neurologically override you. When we eat something sweet or salty, our brain releases dopamine, the chemical responsible for reward and anticipation. But here's the catch. Dopamine is less about satisfaction and more about desire. It tells your brain, do that again. The food industry knows this and exploits it. Food isn't created in kitchens anymore. It's developed in labs, tested across focus groups, and altered through hundreds of microscopic formula tweaks until manufacturers find what's known as the Bliss Point, the exact combination of sugar, salt, and fat that maximizes pleasure while minimizing the feeling of fullness. This concept was pioneered by Dr. Howard Moskowitz, a consultant who helped major brands engineer formulas that made people subconsciously crave more without realizing why. Once that perfect hit is found, where your brain lights up just enough for you to want another bite, but not enough to feel satisfied, it's mass-produced and marketed as a snack. So you're not just eating, you're responding to a trigger. Many ultra-processed snacks also exploit what's called vanishing calorie density. For example, when a cheese puff dissolves instantly in your mouth, your brain interprets it as almost calorie-free, tricking you into thinking you haven't eaten much at all. You keep going, chasing the fleeting sensation before it disappears again. These foods aren't feeding hunger, they're feeding a psychological loop. Hunger ends when the body is full. Craving ends only when the brain is satisfied. And the food industry has learned how to keep that satisfaction just out of reach so you stay inside the loop. Bite after bite, bag after bag, craving the feeling more than the food itself. But it doesn't stop at dopamine. The deeper we go, the more it begins to feel less like food and more like a psychological warfare disguised as a snack. Food companies don't just rely on taste. They attack your brain using a combination of sound, color, texture, memory, emotional triggers, and even childhood nostalgia. The sound of a crunch isn't accidental. Many brands engineer the exact decibel level of the chip's crunch because a louder, sharper crunch triggers a stronger dopamine response, giving your brain a feeling of excitement before you even swallow. Even the color of packaging influences your desire. Red and yellow combinations, like those used by McDonald's, Lay's, and countless sugary cereals, stimulate appetite, urgency, and impulsive behavior. Blue is often avoided because it subconsciously signals calmness or lack of hunger. And then there's portion manipulation. When snack bags say party size or family size, people statistically eat as much as 48% more, even when they're alone. The label subconsciously gives permission. This is supposed to be eaten in large quantities. Your guilt response decreases, and your consumption increases. Marketing doesn't just promote food, it implants identity. Commercials show chips shared during laughter, joy, belonging, creating the illusion that eating this food makes you part of something. So not craving it later feels like missing out. And it even gets darker when children are involved. Once a brain forms a positive emotional association with certain foods early in life, it becomes incredibly difficult to break as an adult. That's why brightly colored cereals have cartoon mascots. That's why fast food chains offer toys and playgrounds. They're not just selling meals, they're planting lifelong cravings. So by the time you tell yourself you're just in the mood for something crunchy, that mood may not be random at all. It may be the echo of an artificially implanted emotional pathway from your childhood, urging you to return to a feeling you never consciously chose. This isn't just theory. You see the consequences in real people's lives. A few years ago, teens across social media were hospitalized after eating excessive amounts of flaming hot Cheetos. One admitted she would go through multiple bags a day. Her mouth burned, her stomach hurt. She felt sick, but still couldn't stop. Doctors later explained that the intense heat, salt, and artificial flavor triggered repeated dopamine spikes. Even when her body protested, her brain kept whispering, "Just one more." When she tried to quit, she experienced symptoms eerily similar to withdrawal. Headaches, irritability, emotional crashes, a constant sense of needing something she couldn't name. She wasn't feeding hunger anymore. She was chasing a neurological fix. And it isn't just teens. Many adults report moments where they feel possessed by cravings. Binging late at night, eating in secret, finishing entire bags and feeling guilty, empty, or emotionally drained afterward. And these aren't just physical consequences. Ultra-processed foods have been repeatedly linked to heightened anxiety, depressive episodes, mood swings, brain fog, and emotional fatigue. When foods spike dopamine rapidly and crash it just as fast, the brain is left in a chemically unstable state, pushing many people towards emotional eating simply to stabilize the very imbalance the food created in the first place. What starts as a craving turns into coping, and coping turns into dependency. Now consider this generationally. Just ask your grandparents whether they ever felt addicted to snacks growing up. Most will describe food as something functional, occasional, not something that controlled their emotional state. Now, childhood obesity has more than tripled since the 70s. Rates of anxiety, depression, and fatigue even risen alongside ultra-processed consumption. People are eating more, yet feeling emptier. We went from being something we consumed to food being something that consumes us. When a system feels this calculated, you have to ask, who benefits from keeping people hooked? Major food companies invest heavily not just in advertising, but in neuroscience labs, behavioral psychology experts, and data-driven flavor engineering to optimize consumption. Even the shape of a snack may be tested for ideal mouthfeel and emotional engagement. These same companies often bankroll nutrition research that downplays addiction risks while blaming individuals for their lack of willpower. Lobbyists then push to influence dietary guidelines, school lunch standards, and national policy, often prioritizing profit over public well-being. And as people become more dependent on ultra-processed foods, industries connected to healthcare and pharmaceuticals quietly profit from the fallout. Not just from rising obesity rates, diabetes, and digestive issues, but also escalating anxiety, depressive episodes, brain fog, and chronic emotional fatigue. And if we pull back and look at the bigger picture, mental health suffering is at its all-time high, closely linked to nervous system overstimulation, dopamine crashes, and nutritional imbalance. Pharmaceutical companies quietly benefit from the rising demand for mood stabilizers, anti-anxiety medications, and energy enhancers. The mental health crisis isn't always just emotional. In many cases, it's biochemical exploitation. So the cycle continues. Food giants make billions by encouraging addictive eating. Health and pharmaceutical industries profit from the consequences. People blame themselves, and corporations continue to grow more powerful by funding both the cause and the cure. This is never accidental. This is an economy of addiction, where cravings fuel cash flow. If you ever felt out of control around certain foods, you're not broken, you were targeted. Ultra-processed foods were everywhere growing up. In school lunches, birthday parties, ads between cartoons, convenience stores, gas stations, every grocery aisle. And our parents didn't hand these foods to us out of malice. Most simply didn't have access to the information we do today. They chose what was affordable, available, socially normalized, and in many cases, what was necessary to keep their kids from going hungry. You weren't weak for eating more even when you weren't hungry. You weren't lazy for feeling foggy or emotionally off after snacking. You were responding to a loop designed to keep you coming back. And becoming aware of this isn't about fearing every food or obsessing over perfection. It's about finally understanding the rules of a game you never agreed to play. That awareness might look like pausing during a craving and asking, is this hunger or conditioning? Reading an ingredient list and realizing you can't pronounce half the chemicals you're consuming. Or maybe simply researching what some of those additives do to your body, which I'll dive into a future breakdown. Awareness doesn't mean cravings disappear. It means they stop controlling you without your permission. And in a world where companies make billions off unconscious behavior, being conscious becomes a quiet act of rebellion. If you're drawn to conversations that challenge what we're being conditioned to accept, you're in the right place. Give this video a like if it made you rethink even one thing you used to see as normal. Share it with that one friend who questions everything too. Stay aware, stay curious, and take your power back, one thought at a time. See you next Sunday. Much love.